Coming up on today's Locked On Senators, it's game day. After a 2-1 regulation win over Pittsburgh yesterday, the Sens are right into the Dragons' den, taking on the league best Boston Bruins.
And after Dylan Ferguson gets his first win in his first start, do the Sens go back to him tonight?
We'll discuss all that, plus the NHL announced today who will provide them with their jerseys for the next 10 years, and, well, fans certainly have a few different opinions. All that's coming up on today's edition of the Locked On Senators podcast. It's your team every day.
Your Locked On Senators, your daily podcast on the Ottawa Senators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
I'm Jake Sanderson, and you're listening to Locked On Senators podcast.
I'm Tim Stützle, and you're listening to the Locked On Senators podcast.
Welcome inside episode 760 of the Locked On Senators podcast. I'm Ross Levitan on the outskirts of enemy territory in Winnipeg, Manitoba. Alongside Brandon Piller up in the Blue Mountain. Please subscribe and like the show wherever you get your podcast. Also available on YouTube. Today is Tuesday, March 21st. And Pilsy, did that sound like coming home or what?
Yeah, it's the and before the welcome was a different twist on it, but I think we've heard enough feedback from the people that when you got an iconic intro going, you got to stick with it. So we dropped the and we're back to the welcome, as Lalim's Martian and Ali Dez will be glad to hear that we're back to our old ways.
Yeah, just to pull the curtain back, we had a few feedbacks that it was a bit like it was coming in too hot once I actually hit the note off the welcome, but we're working on getting the Roadcaster up and making sure that everything sounds crisp. Crisp like a Dylan Ferguson start.
Ooh,
my
crispy.
goodness. What a performance. 48 saves. I want to let everyone know, today we're recording a little bit later. By the way, sorry about yesterday. YouTube took forever on the checks. Nothing we can do about that. We're going to pass on the blame to YouTube. Big corp blame on that one. But we also want to let you know we're going to have a bonus pregame drop interview for you right before, probably like 4 or 5 o'clock. Hopefully it comes out. We're going to chat with Dylan Ferguson's mental skills coach. Pete Fry is going to join us. The goalie mindset on Instagram. That should be a thrilling interview. I'm really excited. He was boots on the ground for Ferguson's big victory last night in Pitt.
Yeah, Ross, I'm fired up about this because we tout ourselves as a hashtag goalie friendly show, but we don't really dive into, we don't really dive into the mindset and the mental aspect of goalies as much as I would like to, and as much as I would like to learn myself, but also share with other people, especially these days. Like, we talked to Joey Decord. He's doing virtual reality stuff. He's doing a lot of mental exercises. And for goalies these days, keeping sharp between the ears is just as important as your physical play. So I'm very intrigued to see what Pete Fry has to tell us.
This is awesome, though. Goalie friendly show. We've had a helmet painter on in Shifty.
Yeah, Shifty.
We've had a goalie dad on in Luciano Mandolese.
Yep.
We've had Mads, we've had Mando, we've had Dax, we've had all these guys, and now we're going to take a different approach here and look at the mental skill side. So that's coming up later on Locked On Senators. But the mental fortitude of Dylan Ferguson and the Ottawa Senators to not crumble, well, more than they already had. They were hemmed into their own zone pretty much the whole game. But when they got scored on with 5 minutes left, I thought the storybook was over. I thought that it was game, set, match, and that the Penguins were going to win in regulation. For Ottawa and Ridley Gregg, who came back from that injury, took a shot in the back of the head below where the helmet hits. Yeah. Wonder what kind of welt he's got on the back of his neck today. But he comes back, draws a penalty, and then they go score on the power play. Like that's about as solid of a bounce back as you can get after giving up a 1-goal lead late.
Yeah, Ross, it did seem a little bit like the clock struck midnight on the Cinderella Fergie story there when they got that goal, and you're wondering, okay, this kid was holding it together, and no fault of his own. Like Martian and I said, he was right there. It just squeezed in between his pad and the post and barely went in, but you thought maybe that would take down the Sens a peg or two, but you got to give them credit. They stuck to it. They ended up getting a big goal from Drake Batherson. You knew when that power play happened, Ross, that this was do or die. If they didn't get this, it was going to overtime for sure. So that was an amazing bounce back from them after having this game tied late in the third.
Power play specialist Drake Batherson
No kidding.
goal on an unreal feed from the captain, Brady Tkachuk, on the half wall. And he's what magic up top. Tim Stützle and Jake Sanderson. Like, no disrespect to Shabby, who had an unreal goal, the first goal of the game.
So nice.
He dazzled there. He's got a penchant for those highlight reel goals. Remember the one against Tampa last year, or went outside in, the one against Toronto against Igor Ozhiganov that sent him all the way back to Russia. Who? Yeah, unreal goal. That was in the opener, I think, a couple of years ago. But he had a great game, and he looks great with Branny. But man, having Sanderson up on that top power play, who could have guessed that it would create more puck movement, and the Senators come through and ultimately get a huge 2-1 win over Pittsburgh. What's your biggest takeaway from that game that you hope the Senators bring into tonight?
I think it's just the fact that even when this team is getting outworked, getting outplayed, if they stick to their structure and stick to their pace, and they have guys like Ross, Claude Giroux made like 3 amazing breakout passes, and they lead to good chances. Like, they have the type of team where they can bend, but as long as they don't break, if they can get really good scoring opportunities, they have the types of players in Thomas Chabot that if he has some time and space, he can pull off a move like that. Drake Batherson on the power play. Tim Stützle had a couple amazing chances that he wasn't able to finish. Like, there's so much talent on this team that they can have that bending effect and feel like they're getting absolutely worked, which they were, but you can still come along with a victory here. So I think at this point, like, this isn't the pesky Sens. That wasn't a pesky win. That was, okay, how much can we handle here? And when we get our spots, we have to take advantage. And that's what this team did in a tight 2-1 race. Ross, I don't know about you, but I was hammering the over all over the place between these 2 goals. I thought it was going to be a goal bonanza. But I was going to say Goalapalooza, but I thought that sounded too crazy. So, yeah, it ends up, the under ends up hitting on this one. So you'll love to see that if you're a goalie.
The Sens outshot 49-21. My key to victory comes true. The Sens go a perfect 3 for 3 on the penalty kill, and it's their first in 6 games where they do not allow a goal while short-handed. They allowed a goal in the power play 7 games ago, too. So,
and Ross, they finally scored first. What a treat that was.
6th time in the last 19 games that the Senators score first. And it was after a period that was completely dominated by the Pittsburgh Penguins. They outshot Ottawa 18-7, but Thomas Chabot, with 3 minutes and 16 seconds left in the period, gets the Sens on the board. Claude Giroux's 40th assist, and he is now single digits away from 1,000 career NHL points. Jake Sanderson continues to lead from the back end offensively. His 25th assist. He now has 29 points on the season. That is sole possession of most by a rookie defenseman in the NHL. He and Owen Power, the first overall pick from the next draft, they're 6 months birthday separated. So it's kind of funny. Different draft. You think there's a full year between them, but Sanderson late birthday, Power early birthday. And all of that makes for a very fun storyline in the years to come between the Sabres and Senators. At the end of the show, we'll take a look at the out-of-town scoreboard, and we'll look at the standings because, well, Pittsburgh's the team that Ottawa needs to catch now. The Islanders, they've gotten a few wins together here. They look like they're kind of sailing now, but the Penguins also looked like they were sailing, and now they've lost 4 games in a row and some ugly ones in there as well. So Hunter Hodes from Locked On Penguins said that he felt like that was a season-ending loss. So hashtag Sens.
Wow. I mean, man, if he's at a point where that felt like a season-ending loss, imagine what that would have felt like for us.
Well, I mean, I think he's been a little spoiled with the success of the Penguins over his lifetime. So
yeah, if you've been following along with his Twitter, he's had a tough season this year. That's for sure.
Tough year over there. Who wants it? Well, Chuck and the fellas wanted it last night enough that Dylan Ferguson did the rest of the work. Drum roll, please. Drum roll. Dylan Ferguson got the goggles.
Woo! Let's go. Keep it rolling, boys.
Coming up next, we'll discuss if they will keep it rolling with Dylan Ferguson and more. You're listening to Locked On Senators.
Today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. It's the #1 sportsbook in North America. Ross, you know how I know that? I tweeted out my FanDuel betting on Dylan Ferguson to get a shutout at plus 1,500, and we had people responding, my sportsbook doesn't have this. Where are these odds? I can't get this. Yeah, maybe stick to the best sportsbook in North America, and you're going to get the odds you want. It's the official sportsbook partner of the Locked On Podcast Network, a partner of the NBA, of the NFL, and they have so many fun bets you can make, like I just mentioned, betting on a guy to get a shutout in his first NHL win. It was just over 5 minutes away from happening, Ross, but I also did a little bet that he would make over 30 saves. That hit in the first 2 periods. So what I'm saying is you can use the FanDuel app to get all sorts of type of action on this game. If you had Sens money line, if you had Sens regulation money line, if you had the under, then you had a good night. So definitely get in on that. And if you're new, you can get a no sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's bonus bets back if your first bet doesn't win. So just check out FanDuel.com/lockedon. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon to check out your first no sweat first bet up to $1,000 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sportsbook of the NBA.
Today's episode is also brought to you by the GLEBE Central Pub. Go head to our friends at the GLEBE Central Pub, check out the game, check out the Sens Shuttle that they got going multiple times the rest of the season. We were actually looking at it the other night because we will likely be on the Sens Shuttle April 8th to the game against Tampa Bay, but you can go check out all the games that they have the shuttles for at GLEBECentralPub.com. Make sure you're following them on social media as well at GLEBE Central Pub, especially on Instagram. They do a great job of posting what's coming up, whether they have live music night, whether they have other events. I love having the dartboard. It's such a classic bar like staple. Get up, move around, shake, shimmy, maybe make a drinking game out of it responsibly. Have a great time at the Glebe Central Pub. You can do all of that at 779 Bank Street. And when you head there, go make sure you let Dave and the servers, the great people who work in the kitchen, let them all know that Locked On Senators sent you. We got a great relationship with them. They put on the postcast. We'll see you in the postcast after tonight's game, and make sure you go visit the Glebe Central Pub at 779 Bank Street. And when you go, make sure you let them know that Locked On Senators sent you. All right, Pilsy. That's one that's never going anywhere, not even for a minute.
Yeah, that's the classic.
Gotta love it. You gotta love when a goalie friendly show gets to talk about two of the best NHL debut starts in the history of the game. Like, we just had this conversation 2.5 weeks ago when Kevin Mandolese came out and put on an absolute clinic in New York on Long Island on Valentine's Day. You love to see it. 46 saves. What does Dylan Ferguson do? 48 saves. I pulled up the graphic in the postcast last night. That is the second most saves by an NHL goalie in their first career start. And when you look at this list, Pilsy, there's what? 2, 4, 6. There's 9 names on this list. 2 of them this year. The next name on it, you have to go back to 2015. So this isn't something that happens where it's like, oh, it's just they're the next in line. They're the ones to do it. It's been 8 years since we've seen it. And then in the span of a month and a week, we get 2 Ottawa Senators goalies making 45 or more saves in their NHL debut start.
Oh, it's so awesome, especially, Ross, with a franchise that just, no matter what the Sens try to do, how they try to align their goalies in the offseason, it all just crumbles and falls apart, and everything is up for debate, and who's going to start where, you never know. You got to bring in a guy like Dylan Ferguson, who is making up for injuries and plugging in roster spots in Belleville, and ends up getting a start in the NHL. And I mean, the reason this doesn't happen very often, Ross, is it's not very often that you get a guy that's in a position to start his first game and he gets all those shots, and that he can make a lot of saves on all those shots. Like, if you're getting 40 plus shots in your debut, it's probably going to be a pretty ugly outcome unless you're an all-star goalie like Dylan Ferguson or Kevin Mandolese. So we love to see that from our guys.
Well, Kevin Mandolese's second career NHL start was in Boston. Will it be the same for Dylan Ferguson? I know in the postcast you were all for it, and I'm going to co-sign. I hate to do it because it's a debate show. We like going back and forth. We like having different opinions because I'm sure there is an argument to be made for Matt Sogard. but it ain't coming from this show. You got to ride the hot hand, and I loved the way you broke it down in the postcast, Pilsy, saying that you don't want him to spend 2 days, 3 days thinking about what he just accomplished. Stay in the fire, make saves, keep resetting, be dialed in, and I think it's a no-brainer to go with Dylan Ferguson tonight.
Yeah, and Ross, I always, 100% of the time, I push back on you on this discussion, but I'm all in on this. Like, there's no time to play smart and calculated. You have to take risks now. Like, if you feel like you have a hot advantage, you gotta hit it, even if the math doesn't make sense, even if it's unconventional, even if it's a guy who only has 2 NHL games under his belt and one of those is only a couple minutes 6 years ago. If he's feeling it, go for it.
No risk, no fun.
Yes, exactly. And we're all about having fun at this stage.
And just to read between the tea leaves, his mental skills coach is on his way to Boston right now and will be at the game. Now, I'm not putting 2 and 2 together, but if Matt Sogard was starting, I don't know if he would be going to Boston from Pittsburgh. It's not like both games are in Ottawa.
Yeah, that's fair. I think one thing, though, Ross, is backing up in a game also takes a certain amount of mental fortitude, because just because you're not starting the game, there is no guarantee that you're not getting in there. So yeah, it's a little different. You're not going into it being like getting in your routine and stuff, but you have to have the mental exercise to be like, okay, I'm sitting on the bench, but I'm not sitting here eating popcorn and trying to find the fan with the best sign in the 100 section in Boston. I got to be dialed in on this game, because in a moment's notice, like, Matt Sogard could be having the game of his life, but he could pull both MCL or tear both MCLs at the same time, or he could get hurt, or something could happen. God forbid. I don't want that, obviously, but that could happen, and you got to be ready to go in there and play at your best. So I think whether you're starting a game or backing up, you need to have a good mental exercise routine, and maybe that's why Pete's going along regardless here.
Practicing what he preaches. If he's telling you you have to be dialed in, he's got to be dialed in too.
Yep, exactly.
There you go. So not much of an argument on this. I'm sure there's not much of an argument among NHL fans at the jersey announcement today. Fanatics. We love Fanatics. Same start. Fanatics, which has been known as, like, what do you want to call it? Like the AHL of NHL jerseys right now, where it's like you have the Adidas and you can order that and they're ridiculously priced. So I don't fault anybody who wants to represent the team. They go with the Fanatics, but the quality of those jerseys, they look and feel cheap. Now, Pilsy, you were saying that, so it's a 10-year contract and we assume it's for lots of money. If the cap doesn't go up after this, then it's a complete miss. But Pilsy, there is actually, you look around, and is it MLB that has Fanatics jerseys, but they just put a Nike logo on it? I'm kind of confused at how this works.
Yeah, I'm not sure about the MLB thing. I haven't looked into that, Ross. But from what I heard today is there is kind of a silver lining on this, is that Fanatics is just going to be going into the same factory where Adidas had been making these jerseys. So I'm not a factory expert or anything like this, but that's got to be a good sign that all the equipment is there to produce the jerseys in the same way. And when you get a 10-year deal with the NHL, I'm sure you get a little bit extra funding in the budget, and maybe they can bump up their quality there. But that's the thing. Like, I think the reason Fanatics was so different, Ross, is because they're trying to cater to a market, especially in this economy, a large market of people that simply can't justify spending $250 on a jersey. And like you mentioned, that is 100% fair. Like, that's an expense, big time. That's expensive. So if you're looking to get a jersey, but you're not able to kind of shell that out, then Fanatics was an option. Whereas I'm hoping, Ross, when they become the official provider of the on-ice stuff, the standard is going to have to be raised, and NHL will hold them accountable to a certain standard.
Well, they've been the official, like, kind of off-ice merchandise even still over the last number of years, and people post photos. Someone had a New York Rangers, like, sweater, and it was all blue and red, and it had the Rangers logo, but it said New York Islanders. Like, they're just like, random factory mistakes that are just ridiculous. Someone posted and the logo was upside down on their sweater. Like,
oh no.
like complete bush league stuff here. Names spelt wrong on the back. Like it is wild, some of the mistakes. So hopefully they figure it out. The real question, because I think the on ice, it's going to look fine. They're taking over the same factory in Quebec that Adidas came out of. They're using the same materials, same this, same that. The real test is, what are the fans going to get? Are we going to be stuck with this kind of like lower tier, or are you going to give the official authentic product out as well? So these are all things, but people just hate change. So I think they could have partnered with anybody and everyone would have said, what the hell? People hated Adidas when they came out.
I was going to say the exact same thing happened, which is surprising. I kind of forget how I was feeling about that, because
it was the shoulders and the necks. But then a lot of teams figured it out and they're like, hey, why don't we make the neck the same color as the main part of the jersey? And then you're looking at a little bit of an easier transition. But like, remember the first year, the Senators with their, like, the old red ones, and they had the thick black neck on it. It just looked ridiculous.
Yeah, I think there was just some different design changes there, but you know what? I'm going to go into this with a positive mindset. I mean, to sign a 10-year deal, the NHL must have seen some sort of plan laid out and some designs and ideas and materials and things like that. You don't just lock in to a 10-year deal without knowing that. Ross, I'll be in my 40s when this deal is up.
You're right.
Right? Okay, good.
You will be. All right, coming up, we might be in our 40s by the time the Boston Bruins get off the top of the NHL, because people have been talking about their downfall for a number of years, and now they might have the best record in NHL history. We'll preview tonight's game from the TD Garden. By the way, 7 o'clock puck drop. We've got the postcast after tonight's game. Is it 7? I got to scroll. Yep, 7 o'clock Eastern puck drop in Boston. Preview of that game, and we'll take a peek at the standings. Pilsy, give the people a claw update. How many claws are the Senators holding on by?
They got 2 claws left on that cliff, Ross. I really thought the Pittsburgh Penguins were going to provide a different battle, but Dylan Ferguson was the difference.
Is the third finger like trying to sneak up and grab on?
Yeah, you know what? That third finger's hanging around. Yeah, I would say that. Yeah, now the claws are sniffing around. That's for sure. But
feeling around.
That was an absolutely monumental win. Especially, it cannot be understated how important it was for Drake Batherson to score that goal in regulation and give them the regulation win.
And keep the Penguins to 0 points on the night. Huge. All right, game day preview. No rest for the weary. It's coming back tonight. The Senators against the NHL's best. Preview. You're listening to Locked On Senators.
Today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at Built Bar, the protein bar that tastes like a candy bar. That's why I love them, Ross, because I've tried other protein bars and I said, yeah, I'm convinced this is healthy for me, but I'm not getting through this. I hate this flavor. It's hard. You feel like you got to use your back teeth just to rip it off. No, Built Bar is soft, easy to chew. Every bar is covered in 100% chocolate. And our favorite, Ross, the Built Puffs, that's chocolate in a marshmallow. Marshmallow and chocolate, somehow healthy. It's a protein-infused marshmallow. That's how they do it. Go ahead.
I just want to say, go to Built.com right now, because they've got a buy one, get one free, and then you can still use the promo code LOCKEDON15. On top of that, it's literally the best offer you're ever going to get at Built.com.
It's a sweet deal, that's for sure. And even though it's so sweet, Ross, they're low in sugar and low in calories, but high in fiber and high in protein. And they're always coming out with new stuff. I just went to Built.com right now as we're talking, Ross, and they got a new lineup. It's called the Built Crave. So Built Crave, 17 grams of protein, 160 calories, only 5 grams of sugar, and the new flavor they're rolling out is peanuts and caramel, so you can satisfy your candy craving with the Built Crave bar. Check it out today at Built.com, guys, and like Ross said, we're hooking you up with the promo code. Use promo code LOCKEDON15 to get 15% off your first order. One more time, Built.com, promo code LOCKEDON15 for 15% off. Try the new Built Craves. It's Built Bar, the protein bar that tastes like a candy bar.
All right, Pilsy. Segment 3. The Boston Bruins. Now, I'll do a spin zone. The Sens are only one of 2 teams to beat the Boston Bruins twice this year.
Woo!
The second, the Florida Panthers. The team that has now jumped into the final wild card spot, or should I say, pounced, as the Panthers do. They've been on the prowl for a while, and they've got a game tonight as well. So, Sens fans, who are we cheering for tonight? Let's start with the cheering guide and then get into Sens game day preview.
All right, so I'll just go across my list here. Columbus versus Washington. I know I said Washington is out of this, but it's still a part of the race here. So we're cheering for the Columbus Blue Jackets.
Woo!
Yep. Okay. And up against the Florida Panthers, we're cheering for the Philadelphia Flyers. Hopefully,
Come on. Let's go, Philly.
Hopefully they can boost things here. Yep. And then
do it for G.
This one's looking a little better, Ross. We're cheering up against for the Nashville Predators up against the Buffalo Sabres. Nashville, believe it or not, even though they were sellers at the deadline, they're still in this race trying to knock off your Winnipeg Jets, Ross. So this is a big game for the Predators as well.
I disavow the Jets. They stink.
And then we got a couple more options here, Ross. I hate to do this, but we're going to get our blue and white pom-poms out as the Leafs are up against the New York Islanders. That's a big one there.
We're cheering for the Leafs a bunch coming up, so apologies to everybody.
I know. It's not where we want to be, guys. You guys know that. And that wraps it up here. I mean, Detroit, I guess they're still in this race, so we're cheering for the St. Louis Blues, but I'm not too concerned about that.
They're dead.
They're not even in your standings picture here on YouTube. So
yeah, check this out. So coming up in the next 10 games, the Leafs play the Islanders, the Panthers twice, the Sens. We're cheering for the Sens there. Hey, at least we have that.
Go Sens, go!
They actually play the Islanders once. They play the Panthers 3 more times. So you need 3 Leafs wins there, and you're actually if the Leafs beat the Panthers all 3 games in regulation, the Sens are actually in a decent spot all of a sudden.
I mean, Ross, we've seen the Leafs be able to beat teams 3 times. 4? No, not 4, but 3. It's possible.
So I better go check it. That's a great line, by the way. But I got to go check. Have they? They already beat the Panthers once this year. So we can expect 2 more wins then?
Yeah. Okay, we'll take 2 out of 3.
Yeah, 2 out of 3 ain't bad.
Yeah.
3 out of 4 is ridicule for life, though. You want to start with the Bruins? I feel like we should start with the Bruins. We got to give some respect to a team that has clearly done everything they can to deserve that this year. The Boston Bruins. I'll run through their lineup. You can do the Senators. The Boston Bruins, we expect them to line up as such. Patrice Bergeron on the top line with Brad Marchand and Jake DeBrusk. Probably the happiest guy in the league that he didn't end up getting his wish being traded out of there last season. The second line, check this out. David Krejci between Pavel Zacha and David Pasternak, all 3 Czech-born players really communicating well out there, I'm sure, among other things. Passed to the most goals in the NHL by players not named Connor McDavid. The third line is Charlie Coyle, Tyler Bertuzzi, who we last saw in a Red Wings jersey, and Trent Frederick. And the fourth line is Tomas Nosek with Yanni Lauko and Garnet Hathaway. You might remember Hathaway. He got suspended once for spitting on Eric Gudbranson. On the back end, it's Matt Grzelcyk with Charlie McAvoy, Hampus Lindholm with Brandon Carlo, and Dmitry Orlov with Connor Clifton. In goal, it's either Linus Ullmark or Jeremy Swayman. That decor is easily the best in the NHL, and you know what? I'd probably say the same about the forward group. The Boston Bruins are 53, 11, and 5 on the season, and Pilsy, they're riding a 3-game win streak.
And they are the only team in the NHL to have clinched, and that happened 2 weeks ago? It's insane. They're 7-3 in their last 10, and yeah, this team's pretty good. And Ross, this is a stacked lineup without a former MVP in Taylor Hall in the lineup as well. So just wild what the Bruins have been able to do. But when you have Bergeron and Krejci making minimum wage here, you can have that kind of power on the cap world.
Pilsy, stat of the day. You ready for the stat of the day?
Hit me.
The Boston Bruins are 13 points clear of the second most points in the NHL? Carolina, 13 points, okay?
That's insane.
Carolina, the second most points, are 13 points clear of the 13th place team in the NHL.
Wow, that is some spread right there.
The same gap. So basically, if you're in the playoffs, you're 13 points from being second in the NHL, but then you have to go 13 more points to get up to Boston.
Wild. And this wild card race that we're talking about, Ross, your reward is you get to go up against these Boston Bruins in a 7 or less game series.
I like Ottawa's chances.
Hey, so do I. Honestly, so do I.
No, I mean, hey, you can't.
David versus Goliath.
Hey, just Derek Brassard can just tell war stories in the locker room before the game of that time that Erik Karlsson screamed at him, and it just changed the entire momentum of the series.
It's true.
So we do have that going for us. Give me your lookout player on this Boston Bruins wagon.
I mean, there's so many to choose from here. It's tough to really nail it down, but I'm going to go with Brad Marchand on this one. 61 points in 61 games. He was kind of the player where his hip injury was going to keep him out till Christmas, and everyone was like, oh, the Bruins aren't going to be able to go without Marchand. McAvoy was out for a while. Yeah, that didn't matter at all. But the reason I'm going to be watching Marshy here is second half of back-to-back. The Sens may be a little tired here, so do not fall for his antics. Stay disciplined. Don't be giving this team, this squad, power play opportunities from dumb penalties. So let Marshy do his thing. Let him be a rat out there. If he's going to lick you, let him lick you. Like, don't retaliate too much, because he's a player that he'll draw the penalty and then he'll score on the ensuing power play. So it's a bit of a double whammy there. So I'm going to be looking out for Brad Marchand.
Do you mind if I do too?
I don't mind. Go ahead.
Okay, well, first I'll go with the other player who missed the start of the season due to injury. Charlie McAvoy, for my money, is a top 5 defenseman, maybe even top 3 in the National Hockey League. He's played 56 games, so he missed the first 13 games of the year. Came back probably quicker than many thought, and he's got 45 points in 56 games as a defenseman. He's doing damage at even strength just as much as the power play. 29 of his 45 points have come at 5-on-5. But the beauty about having a decor like the Boston Bruins have is they don't have to play anyone 25 minutes. He's second in ice time behind Hampus Lindholm, which is just unreal when you look at the depth of this team. But my second one, like, we can't talk about the Boston Bruins and not bring up David Pastrnak, because, look, they have such a great, like, second tier of player. They're all between 61 and 40 points, 2nd through 9. It's almost like how I mentioned with the standings. And then you have to go 32 points better than anybody else is David Pastrnak. He's got 48 goals on the season in 69 games. He's a complete stud. He signed his new extension, $11.5 million. Big time. It's still a steal for the team, though.
Yeah.
It's still a steal for the team. He's unbelievable. He has 326 shots on goal in 69 games. That's ridiculous. It's absolutely absurd what he does, and he beats up on the Sens as well. I'm going to pull up his career numbers because, I mean, he does damage against every team, so certainly it's going to be eye-popping. 32 points in 24 career games against the Sens. That's the third? That's the third most points he has against any team.
Yeah.
Just the Flyers and Sabres he has more against. Or sorry, and the Rangers he has 33 versus 32. So it's right there. He loves playing against Ottawa. How many of those have been game winners? Just 2 of them. It feels like more, but I'm going to be looking out for David Pastrnak, a hell of a talent out there with the Bruins.
Yeah, I mean, we could go down this whole team, Ross, and I think we would have positive things and things we're concerned about for almost all of these players.
They don't even have their former MVP in the lineup tonight. Taylor Hall's out, their former captain of the Columbus Blue Jackets, Ottawa Senators first-round draft pick, Nick Foligno out of the lineup. Like, they have so many weapons. They have got a defenseman they picked up at the deadline, Dmitry Orlov, who I think was known as like a decent, like solid middle pair defenseman. Like,
about 4 guy, yeah.
He can be a number 4, 5 on a championship winning team, which is where he's slotted now. He's got 12 points in 11 games. Like,
yeah, dude.
They're getting production from absolutely everywhere. And we didn't even touch on the fact that Linus Ullmark is putting up Hamburglar numbers through an entire season. He's got a .935 save percentage. So this team is as good as advertised, and it's going to be extremely tough. I thought the Senators hung in there. They played rope-a-dope last time on that afternoon game on Family Day.
Yep.
But they're going to need a bit more of a push here on the second half of back-to-back. The Bruins, meanwhile, are coming off a 7-0 win against Buffalo on Sunday.
Ross, in their last 3 games, the Bruins have had 2 shutouts in those and have outscored opponents 15-2. So, yeah, this team's good.
Hey, we'll always have the home opener, buddy.
I mean, I'll never... Greatest Tuesday of my life.
It still is.
Well, that could change tonight, though.
Whoa. Are you putting that much pressure on tonight's game?
I mean, I'm not putting pressure on. I'm just saying there's an opportunity. Ross, every Tuesday is an opportunity to be the greatest Tuesday of my life.
Well, let's see the Warriors that are going to go to battle for Ottawa tonight.
All right, so top line is going to be Brady Tkachuk with Tim Stützle and Drake Batherson. Alex DeBrincat with Ridley Gregg and Claude Giroux. Brassard with Pinto and Gauthier. Brown, Gambrell, and Watson rounding it out. And this decor is starting to feel a little bit better to me, Ross, every time I see it. Sanderson and Zub, Chychrun and Hamonic, and I mentioned I like Shabbat and Branny, and it seems like they've been doing well together, and DJ likes it as well, as they're going to stick there. And as DJ Smith does, we do not know who the starting goalie is. We won't know until warmups, but it's between Dylan Fergalicious Ferguson and Mads the Great Dane Sogard.
How cool is it that the Sens were playing that in the locker room after the game last night when the video started?
Yeah, it's, I mean, you got to lean into it, Ross. I tried to watch this is getting off the rails here, but I tried to watch the Fergalicious music video, and I was going to post it being like, this song stuck in my head, but I was like, this video is just, it was a different time when Fergalicious came out, that's for sure. So I went against that.
Well, I mean, Black Eyed Peas had to change the name and lyrics of one of their most famous songs because it was outdated, we'll say.
What, Let's Get It Started?
Yeah, I mean, it was always that, right?
Yeah, I never heard a different version.
Hey, where's the love? That's actually, that one holds the test of time. That's a banger.
Oh, yeah, that's a great one. Where's the love? Yeah.
Where is the love? Maybe we'll have to ask Pete what his favorite Black Eyed Peas song is. He'll be like, what? Relax. That's the kind of shenanigans we get in here. Comment below. I want to hear your favorite Black Eyed Peas song because I'm going Fergy only today. Fergy only on the iPad today for my. That's what I'm rocking here with the good vibes going into tonight's game. Let's leave the goalies aside because we already touched on that earlier today. And by the way, Senators did not skate today, so we are unsure if these lines will stay together. DJ Smith said some guys are banged up, so we'll see if there are lineup changes. Mark Kaslick, Nick Holden, ready to be called upon. The extras going into tonight, we expect. Who's your locked-on player? Who are you expecting big game from?
My locked-on player, Ross, is going to be Ridley Gregg. He's still in that second-line center position. Like you mentioned, he took a nasty puck to the back of the head and he had to leave, but he does come back, draws a crucial penalty. And he's been getting a little beat up lately, Ross. And coming up from Belleville, it's been a rough physical time for him. But the kid is an absolute warrior, and he only plays last 3 games, Ross, 11:49, 12:20, and 10:27. For a second-line center, that is very minimal, but I think he's going to get back into the groove here. And honestly, Ross, having him play I'm putting this in air quotes, minimal role as a second-line center, I still think is more beneficial than continuing to trot Pinto out there when it just simply wasn't working, right? And Pinto, I feel like, is thriving on that third line, and him and Gauthier hooked up for a nice goal. I believe that was in Colorado. So these lines shake out a lot better, and regardless of how well you think Ridley Gregg is, I think he's an important cog in this wheel, this machine, because it puts Shane Pinto in a spot where he's more comfortable and it allows more balance throughout the whole line. So I'm going to be locked on to Ridley Gregg tonight to see if he can have a little bit more of an impact than just aligning the lines in a good way.
Promise you won't laugh at my locked on player.
This is a safe space for Sens fans, Ross, so I won't laugh.
I'm going to go with Alex DeBrincat.
Okay, yeah, all right.
Got to score eventually.
Right, you would think.
He's got to score eventually.
And wait, he's got to score and it's got to count eventually. Let's throw that asterisk in there.
1 assist, no goals, -8 in his last 6 games, 15 shots on goal. Got robbed last night again with a 2-pad stack slide around and save right before the Sens got the game winner. And I was like, he's never going to score again. I have donated so much money to FanDuel this year betting on him to score. Yeah. I'm doing it again tonight. Alex DeBrincat goal. Sens are 16-1-1 on the season when he gets a goal. That's my locked on player. And Pilsy, he is making the same salary as the big dogs on Boston. Go out there and be a difference maker when you're playing against those big teams. That's why you need your best players to be at their best when you're playing the best. Follow along with that one. Alex DeBrincat needs to be that tonight if the Sens are going to win.
And Ross, we need him to score a goal scorer's goal. Like off a defenseman skating in, like that's not going to boost the confidence the way we need. We need him feeling it so that when he does get those grade A scoring opportunities, he doesn't just sail them high and wide or shoot it right at the goalie that's sliding over with a whole empty cage open for him. So, yeah, that was my locked on player last night, Ross, and I decided to go a different direction here because being locked on to number 12 as a Sens fan has been a frustrating thing this year.
Key to victory.
I think, wait, didn't we oh, no. My key to victory is going to be mixed in with my lookout player, and it's discipline. Like, I guarantee you will not beat this team if you give them more than 4 power play opportunities. I feel pretty confident in that because not only, like, it doesn't even matter about them scoring on the power play. It's just them having that momentum and putting you on your heels and keeping you tired because this team can battle with the best of them. I mean, weird, they're the best team in the NHL, but 5-on-5 is tough enough up against the Boston Bruins. So if you're spending more than 10 minutes killing penalties, I feel like you're just not going to have any gas left in the tank, especially a team, Ross, on the second half of a back-to-back here. So discipline is my thing. And Ross, we used to have where I played house league hockey, shout out Arthur, Ontario, great hotbed for hockey in Ontario. There was a local that used to always tell us his number one thing, telling all the kids, you gotta stay disciplined. And we'd all kind of be like, oh yeah, whatever. But it rings true no matter what level of hockey you play. If you lose that restraint and you let it get out of hand and you have a hot head, your emotions are going to get the best of you and it's all going to spiral out of control. So discipline is my key to victory tonight.
That's great. I'm going to continue on the special teams train, but the Boston Bruins have the best penalty kill in the entire NHL. If you can kind of crack that code at least once, maybe twice, you're going to give your best chance to win. And to do that, you need to play smart and play fast and make them take penalties. They don't take a lot, but if you can draw some, I think you're going to go a long way. Let's see where Boston ranks in terms of minor penalties taken. They've actually got the 5th most penalties in the league. Ottawa's 3rd, by the way. So it is interesting to note that. And you look at that, that's just minor penalties, right? They also are oh, wow. No, there's a lot of teams with a lot of major penalties. Wow. But you look at that and be smart. Like Ottawa took another bench penalty last night. They're tied for the most in the league. 16 bench penalties this year. That's free power plays. And that's what you're saying, discipline. And it's just about being smart. Like, come on. You're tied with Arizona in bench penalties to lead the league.
And that's the thing, Ross. Like, what do you think that extra, second, maybe second and a half of doing a quick change, what do you think that's going to accomplish? Is that worth the risk?
Nothing.
No.
Nothing. And look at the teams that are leading the league in bench penalties. Arizona and Ottawa at 16. Seattle, Minnesota, and Anaheim and Montreal at 12. Vancouver and Florida at 11. Like, these are not good teams for the most part. So you don't want to be in that mix, and Ottawa has an opportunity here to smarten up and stop taking bench penalties because it's not going well for them. And those are the type of penalties that usually get scored on, right? It's not the Sanderson, like the weak call on Crosby. Like, I hate that so much. Is that the one that they scored on last night? Was it a power play goal at the end of the day? No, I don't think it was.
No, it wasn't. No.
Okay, yeah, because those are the type that you kill off for your young kid. I can't believe they actually called that. That's ridiculous.
It's Crosby. They're going to call that.
Goes down, hand goes up type baloney. But anyways, Ottawa has to battle through tonight. And I don't want to – there's no schedule losses anymore. You're playing out the string. There's 12 games left. Go out there, earn wins, and you need your best players to be their best. I'm looking at you, 12. I'm looking at you. You got to be good. All of them, top 6, top 9, get a couple energy shifts because Boston's got that. That 4th line is going to go out and kill guys. So make sure that you're answering the bell. I don't want to say I'm confident, Pilsy, but they can't play as bad as they did last night, and they snuck out a win. So hopefully they bounce back, watch some video, and away they go tonight. 7 o'clock, postcast afterwards. Join us. We got the full postcast crew tonight.
And Ross, this is easily the hardest game left in this season. A back-to-back on the road up against the best team in the NHL. The only next back-to-back, Ross, is April 1st. They're home to Toronto. And then
And Toronto's playing the second half back-to-back that night.
Oh, okay. So that's an advantage. And then the second half of the Sens back-to-back is on the road in Columbus. So
business.
This is the toughest game for the rest of the year for sure. So let's see what these guys got.
Any final thoughts?
Final thoughts for me is, honestly, Ross, no matter who starts tonight, I've made it clear I'm down for Fergie. I'm feeling Fergalicious here, but I think this could be a really good head shaker for Mads, because Mads kind of has been here and being like, well, I'm the de facto #1 guy. They're going to use me more often than not just because of this is the situation we're in. But now it's like, okay, there's a bright new kid in here that he might get a little more shine than me. I got to make sure that I'm keeping my hierarchy where I want it to be. Not to say that there's any malicious relationship. He wants to beat out a backup or anything like that. But these goalies have pride and ego as well, and you don't want to be kind of taking the back seat when you were supposed to be in the forefront here. So if Mads ends up getting the start here, I think that could be a big shakeup that he needs to kind of have a different outlook on how he needs to play. And if Fergie gets it, don't think, just play.
Don't think, just play. My final thoughts, I don't know if Mads is 100%. Remember he pulled something in that game against Colorado?
Fair. Yep. And a big guy like that, if you pull a muscle, that's going to have a big impact.
Big muscles.
Big guy, big muscle, big impact.
All right, we'll find out. Follow us on Twitter for more as we near game time. And remember, bonus content coming in your audio feeds and on YouTube. No promises of when it will be out, but we're really excited to chat with Pete Fry, the mental skills coach of Dylan Ferguson, coming off his 48-save win for the Ottawa Senators. For a more detailed insight into last night's game, go check out the postcast for more content at Laleem's Martian, and Brandon Piller broke that all down for you there. We'll chat in the postcast tonight, but for today we say goodbye. For Brandon Piller, I'm Ross Levitan, and this has been the Locked On Senators podcast, your team every day.